You think being a good man means always providing, protecting, proving yourself at work, at home, in love, right? But after 50, something shifts. You stop asking, how can I make her happy? And start asking, what is she bringing to a life I've already built? This isn't bitterness, this is wisdom. Older men today stay single not because they fear love, but because they finally understand peace and how rare it truly is. If you're a man over 50 who feels this shift too, comment below. Peace feels better than approval. Let's walk through why so many mature men now quietly, confidently choose to stay single. 1. Divorce doesn't just hurt, it breaks a man to the bone. Divorce for a man in his 50s isn't just about paperwork. It's about loss at every level. You gave loyalty. You stayed through the storms. You kept showing up even when exhausted. You thought that would count for something, but it didn't. And when it ended, you lost more than a marriage. You lost your home, your retirement halved, your children caught in the crossfire, sometimes used as weapons in a courtroom that felt colder than any winter night. The identity you once carried with pride, husband, father, provider, shattered in slow motion. After surviving that kind of betrayal, what man would rush back? It's not that he fears loneliness, it's that he's learned how fragile trust is, how expensive promises can become when they're broken. He's no longer eager to rebuild what someone else could so easily dismantle. He's not bitter, he's awake. And if he must choose between being misunderstood in company or being at peace alone, he'll choose peace every time. 2. He's not chasing a wife, he's avoiding the performance. Modern dating stings in ways few admit. At first, she's warm, she's attentive, she's affectionate, and every gesture feels genuine. But for many men, that warmth fades quickly after vows are exchanged. Where there was support, now there's criticism. Where there was tenderness, now there's distance. What once felt like a partnership begins to feel like a transaction. He's lived that pattern before, smiled through it, tried to fix it, and watched himself disappear inside it. So today, he doesn't chase a wife. He's not interested in the performance, hers or his. When someone shows up eager to play a part, he recognizes the mask. And instead of falling for it again, he gently steps back. Not because he hates love, but because he respects peace more. He's not bitter, he's learned. And wisdom tells him this: it's better to stay single than to invest in another act. 3. Peace over problems always. By 50, peace isn't a luxury anymore. It's a need. His home may not be perfect, but it's his. It's quiet, it's clean, it's calm. Why would he risk inviting emotional chaos back in? Why gamble this hard-won sanctuary for fleeting companionship? He remembers what it felt like to walk on eggshells, reading between the lines of every silence, anticipating the next storm, sacrificing his own breath so someone else could breathe easier. He's done with that. Now, he protects his peace like a sacred inheritance. He makes his coffee without commentary. He reads late into the night without explanation. He sits with himself and finds no discomfort there. Companionship is no longer about filling space. It's about preserving space. And unless someone can bring calm, not conflict, they will not be invited in. Because he knows this truth better than most. Peace isn't boring. It's freedom. 4. He's tired of feeling unwelcome for being a man. There was a time when his masculinity was admired, providing was honored, leadership was trusted, protecting was respected. But now, that same masculinity is labeled toxic. Every word he speaks is dissected. Every decision he makes is questioned. Even his silence feels scrutinized. He's expected to provide without complaint, to stay steady in storms, to carry the financial burden, while apologizing simply for being himself. And over time, that expectation eroded something inside him: dignity. He looks around and sees a culture that demands men shrink, soften, doubt their own instincts. His leadership is framed as control, his confidence mistaken for arrogance, his firmness interpreted as coldness. Why would he willingly return to a relationship or a society where who he is feels fundamentally unwelcome? He doesn't need to dominate. He doesn't crave control. He simply desires the freedom to exist as a man without being told his very nature is wrong. And so, he steps back, not in anger, but in quiet clarity. 5. He's looking for a teammate, not a rival. He doesn't want competition at home anymore. He's already competed for decades in work, in society, in his own mind. At this stage, what he values most is peace, shared purpose, harmony. But too often, modern relationships resemble debates, not partnerships. Every decision becomes a contest. Leadership is misunderstood as control. Offering guidance is seen as disrespect. He knows what it's like to love someone who resents his ability to lead, who meets every suggestion with resistance, who hears every plan as a challenge. He doesn't need applause. He doesn't need to win at home. He just needs to breathe with someone beside him, not against him. So when he senses competition where there should be companionship, he steps away early. Not because he's weak, but because he's wise. Love isn't supposed to feel like a power struggle. Home isn't supposed to feel like a battlefield. At this age, he refuses to let love turn into war. 6. He's done with one-sided relationships. He grew up hearing it. Happy wife, happy life. So he followed the script, quietly paying the bills, swallowing resentment in silence, saying yes when he wanted to say no, staying present even when his own needs went unmet. But appreciation never came. Instead of closeness, he received coldness. Instead of gratitude, he met demands. Instead of partnership, he felt pressure. And one day, something inside him clicked. Real love isn't one-sided. It doesn't require a man to erase himself just to maintain peace. Quiet resentment is not the same as harmony. So he made a quiet vow to himself. Never again would he stay in a relationship where his voice didn't matter, where his effort was invisible, where his peace was sacrificed for someone else's comfort. Now, he steps back early, not because he's afraid of love, but because he's unwilling to lose himself again in the name of it. 7. He finally sees his own worth. Around 50, a quiet awakening happens. He no longer chases applause, no longer needs to be liked by everyone in the room, no longer compromises himself just to keep peace. He knows what he brings now: wisdom, earned through mistakes, stability, built over decades, strength, refined by hardship. He's not disparate, he's selective. That difference? It changes everything. He doesn't settle just to avoid loneliness. He understands that self-worth isn't measured by whether he has a partner, but by whether he respects himself when he looks in the mirror. The man he is today honors his time, protects his space, values his energy. So when someone new arrives, seeking to be part of his life, he measures not just what they offer, but what they cost. And if the price is his peace, he'll decline, gently. Not out of arrogance, but clarity. Because after a lifetime of proving himself, he no longer needs to. 8. He's looking for purpose, not just a pretty face. In his younger years, beauty captivated him. A charming smile, a flirtatious glance, a spark of chemistry that was enough. But now, he's different. A beautiful face means nothing if there's no alignment underneath. Charm without character, exhausting. Beauty without kindness, draining. At this age, he's thinking about legacy, not likes, about meaning, not moments. A pretty woman who lacks purpose brings more stress than peace. He's no longer interested in excitement for excitement's sake. He wants something deeper, authentic, aligned. He doesn't seek a trophy, he seeks a teammate. A partner who understands that a shared life isn't about constant thrills, but about consistency, support, and calm. So unless there's real substance, he gladly walks away. Not because he's bitter, but because he finally sees the difference between attraction and alignment. 9. If she doesn't meet his standards, he'll gladly stay alone. At this stage, peace is priceless. His standards are simple but firm. Clarity, respect, shared values. He no longer negotiates with confusion, no longer explains basic decency, no longer bends to fit into someone else's expectations. If a relationship doesn't add to his peace, he won't hesitate to remain single. He protects his space, because that space feels like home. He protects his time, because that time is limited and precious. Being alone is no longer a burden, it's a blessing, when the alternative is losing himself again. He knows now that companionship is optional, but peace is essential. So unless someone meets him with equal honesty, equal respect, equal emotional maturity, he stays single. And he stays whole. 10. He's found more peace alone than he ever had in relationships. It surprises even him, but it's true. He feels more at peace alone than he ever did in many relationships. No tension over trivial things, no walking on eggshells, no emotional games dressed up as romance. His space, his rules, his time, his rhythm, his heart finally quiet. Once, he believed love would bring harmony, but now, he understands, not every relationship adds peace. Some only add noise. When you've lived years trying to make it work, compromising parts of yourself, just to hold a relationship together the moment you step into solitude, feels like breathing fresh air after years in a crowded room. He's not closed off to love, but love must come gently now, respecting the sanctuary he's built. And if it doesn't, he's perfectly happy staying single, not out of resentment, but out of wisdom. 11. Wisdom comes with time. He's no longer naive. There was a time he rushed into love, led by chemistry, blinded by charm, fueled by hope. But now, he sees clearly. He knows that promises can sound beautiful and still break, that affection can feel sincere and still fade. So he takes his time. He observes. He tests not out of suspicion, but discernment. Wisdom has taught him that leadership starts with protecting his own mind, heart, and space. And there's one thing he'll never do again: surrender his role as leader of his own life, just to make someone else feel secure. He trusts slowly now. He invests carefully, not because he's cold, but because he's grown. And with growth comes boundaries. Boundaries that keep him whole. Boundaries that guard the peace he fought so hard to reclaim. 12. He's done performing for love. He remembers it well, how he used to perform. The flowers, the perfect lines, the carefully crafted image, trying to impress, trying to win approval. All for women who didn't value the man, only the performance. But that chapter is closed. Now, he shows up as he is. No scripts, no pretenser. He lives with intention, not pressure. If a woman can't meet him as he is, without expecting a show, he doesn't argue. He doesn't beg. He simply walks away quietly, calmly, confidently, because he understands this truth. Real connection never requires performance. It requires presence. And if someone can't see that, he'll keep walking alone, not lonely, but aligned. 13. He's tired of the shallow dating scene. Dating today feels fake, in a way that wears him down. Profiles filled with perfect angles, conversations that skim the surface, connections that feel more like interviews than introductions. Everyone performing, everyone curating, but few showing up real. He sat across tables where questions feel transactional. What do you do? Where do you live? What's your 5-year plan? But almost no one asks, what gives you peace? What makes you feel alive? Quietly. Dating apps exhaust him. Endless swipes, endless superficial chatter. He's no longer interested in chasing attention, in gathering followers, in impressing strangers. At this age, what he seeks is depth. Someone grounded, someone present, someone ready to build, not just post. And if that's rare, so be it. He's happy to live without it, not because he's afraid of love, but because he knows how draining it is to keep showing up for shallow waters when he's looking for something deep. 14. When intimacy fades, it's a warning. Some men withdraw from relationships when their desire for intimacy fades, but for him, it's deeper than that. He knows physical closeness isn't just about touch, it's about trust. It's a mirror of connection, and when that mirror cracks, it reflects something more profound. When he loses the desire for closeness, it's often because emotional distance has crept in long before. Unspoken resentment, feeling unseen, misunderstood, drained. He's learned that intimacy isn't just a physical act, it's how two souls stay tuned to one another. When that bond weakens, touch becomes hollow, affection becomes routine, and so, he doesn't ignore this warning. When intimacy fades, he pauses, he reflects. He doesn't rush to replace it or numb it. Instead, he gives himself space to heal, to understand, to reconnect with himself first, because he knows this truth. Intimacy can't be forced, but disconnection, if ignored, can quietly erode everything. 15. Freedom without responsibility isn't growth. There's a misconception about freedom that it means doing whatever you want, whenever you want, with no one to answer to. But he knows better now. Some men stay single for the wrong reasons. Not because they've healed, but because they're avoiding life. Avoiding intimacy, avoiding accountability, avoiding growth. That's not freedom. That's apathy, dressed up as independence. Real freedom? It's about leading your life with purpose, choosing your path, while honoring the weight of your choices. It's about being clear, not careless, intentional, not impulsive. He's seen men mistake drifting for freedom, but it's aimless. True maturity isn't escaping commitment, it's choosing it wisely and carrying it with grace. So he reminds himself and any man listening, freedom without responsibility isn't growth. It's stagnation. At this stage, he values freedom deeply, but only the kind that serves his peace, his purpose, and his quiet dignity. 16. He's afraid to open up again. The scars, they're real. Invisible maybe, but deeply felt. After betrayal, after giving his heart fully only to watch it mishandled, he hesitates. Not because he's bitter, but because he's protecting what's left. He knows what it's like to speak honestly and be met with manipulation. He knows what it's like to share openly and have those vulnerabilities thrown back in moments of anger. So now, he guards himself. His silence isn't rejection, it's caution. Yet, somewhere inside, he also knows this. True healing isn't about closing off forever. It's about opening wisely, slowly, carefully, with the right person. He doesn't want to stay frozen, he wants to stay safe. And if the next love comes, it must honor that journey. It must move gently. It must show patience. Because while the scars remain, so does the capacity for connection if met with care. 17. Some men just don't want to lead. Here's a hard truth and one few dare say aloud. Not all single men are wise. Not every man who stays alone is doing so out of strength, or clarity, or purpose. Some have simply checked out. They sit on the sidelines, blaming culture, blaming women, blaming modern dating, but never looking in the mirror. They drift untethered, avoiding commitment, avoiding growth, avoiding responsibility. And while it may look like peace on the outside, inside, there's stagnation. A man who refuses to lead not just in relationships, but in life loses far more than love. It loses purpose itself. Because real leadership isn't about controlling others, it's about showing up, consistently, courageously, consciously. It's about building with or without applause. And when a man stops leading, he doesn't just lose connection with others, he loses connection with himself. So for the wise man, staying single isn't about avoiding leadership, it's about exercising it differently, with discipline, clarity, and dignity. So why are older men staying single? Not because they fear love, but because they've finally learned what peace costs and what it's worth. Being single after 50 isn't a failure. It's freedom, refined. If this resonated, leave a quiet comment. I didn't lose love. I found myself.